Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Senate Republican plan to replace and repeal the Affordable Care Act has once again collapsed, for now. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell made the announcement Monday night. Republicans' inability to push through their health care plan is a major defeat for the party, which controls the House, the Senate, and the presidency. On Monday night, Republican Senators Jerry Moran of Kansas and Mike Lee of Utah announced they would not support the latest Senate version of the bill, ensuring Republicans would not have enough votes to pass it. Their announcement came at the same time President Trump, who has heavily backed the Senate bill, was meeting with 7 Republican senators who did support the legislation. Later Monday night, President Trump tweeted, quote, "Republicans should just repeal failing Obamacare now and work on a new health care plan that will start from a clean slate. Dems will join in," unquote. The legislation would cut $700 billion from Medicaid. It faced opposition from all Senate Democrats, a slew of governors from both parties, the majority of the healthcare industry, the American Medical Association, hospitals, doctors, nurses, patient advocacy groups, and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he'll now try to push through legislation to repeal the Affordable Care Act and wait until after the 2018 midterm elections to propose a replacement. The director of the Office of Government Ethics, Walter Shaab Jr., says the Trump administration has so undermined ethical standards that the United States is, quote, pretty close to a laughing stock at this point, unquote. Shaab is resigning today. He's been critical of President Trump on a slew of issues, including Trump's failure to release his tax returns, his refusal to sell his assets, and his frequent visits to his golf courses, which Shaab says, quote, create the appearance of profiting from the presidency, unquote. In his interview with the New York Times, Shaab also criticized Democrats for trying to co-opt his work, saying, quote, I don't like the fair weather friends who are supportive of the ethics program only as a political tool against this present administration, unquote. The White House has released its plans for renegotiating the North American Free Trade Agreement, known as NAFTA. The 17-page document says the White House seeks to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with Mexico and restrict the amount of imported material and goods that qualify under the agreement. Labor leaders and worker rights organizations criticize the plan, saying it resembles the sweeping Trans-Pacific Partnership. That trade deal faced years of global public resistance by those who said the free trade deal benefited corporations at the expense of worker rights and health and environmental regulations. Trump withdrew the U.S. from the TPP in one of his first acts as president. The release of the NAFTA renegotiation plan Monday came as Trump kicked off his Made in America-themed week. The vast majority of Trump's own company's products are manufactured overseas. We'll have more on NAFTA after headlines with Lori Wallach of Public Citizen. The United Nations is urging the Iraqi government to stop collective punishment against civilians accused of having had ties to ISIS. The UN says family members of ISIS militants are facing forced displacement, the confiscation of their homes, and the fear of retribution. This is Suhaib, whose husband joined ISIS.
In the beginning, he had faith in them, but later he realized he was wrong when he saw the Islamic State militants withdrawing from East Mosul after they had said that they would not have left and that the Iraqi forces could not recapture the areas. He felt their injustice and he regretted his decision. But he could not leave because they executed anyone who would have left them, even if it was a child. I have not heard from him for 2 months now. I do not know if he is buried under the rubble.
This comes as Amnesty International says the U.S.-led coalition and the U.S.-backed Iraqi forces violated international law and may have committed war crimes during the battle to seize control of Mosul from ISIS. We'll speak with the Amnesty International researcher later in the broadcast. In a surprise move, South Korea has reached out to North Korea with an offer to hold military talks this Friday at the demilitarized zone between the two countries. The U.S., Japan, and the European Union, on the other hand, are pushing for heavier sanctions against North Korea. The South Korea overture comes as South Korea refused to allow peace activist Justine, who was born in South Korea, into the country, where she was slated to meet with women's peace groups. South Korea said she'd been denied entry on the ground she might, quote, hurt the national interests and public safety, unquote. This is Justine speaking earlier this month on Democracy Now! About the prospects for de-escalating tensions between South and North Korea and the United States.
Right now, The most viable proposal that is on the table that has now, as you mentioned earlier, is backed by both China and Russia, but it originally came from the North Koreans in 2015, was to halt the U.S. and South Korean military exercises in exchange for freezing North Korea's nuclear and long-range missile program. Now, that is a deal that should be seriously considered, but the Trump administration is not accepting it.
In Gaza, Israeli-imposed restrictions on electricity continue to limit electricity to barely 2 hours a day amidst the stifling summer heat, making it impossible to sleep or keep food from spoiling. The United Nations has warned Gaza has become unlivable for its 2 million residents. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Israeli security forces attacked Palestinians with stun grenades Monday amidst protests and clashes around the Al-Aqsa compound. Over the weekend, Israel installed metal detectors and closed-circuit televisions at the entrance of the holy site, drawing widespread condemnation and protests by Palestinians. In Japan, a top official with the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, says he wants to dump more than 700,000 tons of contaminated water from Fukushima's nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. Local fishermen are protesting against the plan, saying dumping more radioactive waste into the water will imperil the fishing industry. The water's contaminated with tritium, which can cause cancer when ingested in high concentrations. Back in the United States and Texas, white former Balch Springs police officer Roy Oliver has been indicted by a grand jury for the murder of 15-year-old African-American student Jordan Edwards earlier this year. Police body cam video shows Officer Oliver fired his assault rifle into a car carrying 5 black teenagers as they drove away from the officer. One of the car's passengers says the officer never even ordered the boys to stop driving before opening fire. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, hundreds of people attended a vigil and rally Sunday to demand justice for Justine Damon, who was killed by a police officer Saturday after she called 911 to report what she thought was a sexual assault occurring near her home. Damon, who is a white Australian woman, was planning to marry her fiancé next month. She was reportedly wearing her pajamas and was in the alleyway outside her apartment when she was shot by Officer Mohammed Noor as she approached the police car. Officer Noor and his partner's body cameras were not on at the time. This is Justine Damon's father.
We thought yesterday was our worst nightmare, but we awoke to the ugly truth, and it hurt even more. Justine, our daughter, was so special to us and to so many others. We went down to Freshie Beach this morning and saw the blackness change to light. Justine was a beacon to all of us. We only ask that the light of justice shine down on the circumstances of her death. Thank you.
And tens of thousands of people may have their student debt erased as private creditors are realizing they don't actually have the paperwork required to prove they own the loans. As much as $5 billion of student debt is at stake in the ongoing legal battles, which centers on National Collegiate Student Loan Trusts. Dozens of students have already had lawsuits against them dismissed. Amidst revelations, National Collegiate Student Loan Trusts had mass-produced documentation and kept incomplete records. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. We begin